Embassy of the Dead, Chapter 32, The Cloakroom Attendant. Jake wasn't expecting anything in particular when he stepped through the doorway into the Embassy of the Dead, but he was expecting something, not just ruins. He was at the bottom of a large double-height reception room, a room that once must have been grand, but now patches of stars shone through the collapsed roof and shifting columns of rain fell to the cracked floor, gathering in puddles that shimmered in the moonlight. A double staircase swept upwards to his left and right, joining again at the landing on the second floor. The stairs were broken and incomplete, shattered remnants of their former splendour. At the foot of the stairs, Jake saw the rusted grille of an ancient elevator. Beyond the grille, a light caught his attention, a soft, undulating electric glow that caught the dust floating in the air. Slowly he approached and peered through the grille. His heart stopped. A ghostly face was staring back at him from the gloom, the face of a spectral child imprisoned in the caged elevator, dirty and messy-haired, with a look of complete terror etched across his face. Jake blinked, and so did the boy. "Idiot," he muttered to himself. It was his own reflection, cast in the elevator's mirrored wall. Jake waited for his heart to slow down to a safe rate and looked through the grille again. The glow was coming from a column of buttons. B, G, 1, 2. He scanned the rest of the ruined building. A carcass of its former self, the roofless beams spanned the sky, as if he was standing inside the ribcage of a huge fallen skeleton. So strange that within this dead ruin there should be this single pulsing glow of light. Jake gripped the cage doors of the elevator, pulled them open and stepped inside. He squinted at the row of buttons. Which one? He remembered Stiffkey's words. "You be looking for something in particular rather than for nothing at all." What did that even mean? How did you look for nothing at all? He blinked, and there it was, appearing just as he stopped looking for it, another button above the others, marked with the triple-crossed sign of the Embassy of the Dead. Jake took a deep breath and pressed the button. A dull, flickering light suddenly lit the interior of the elevator, and with a harsh, scraping sound it began to move. Floor 1, 2, and still it continued to ascend for 10 seconds or so before finally shuddering to a halt. All was silent. The old-fashioned elevator, with its thick, dusty carpet and protective grille, seemed like a sanctuary from whatever dangers might lie in wait. Jake felt a movement in his hoodie. The finger was struggling against the paper now, trying to worm itself free. Jake clamped his hand over his pocket, fighting back the urge to retch. He could feel the finger writhing through the fabric. The tuneless chime of an ancient bell sounded, and the elevator door split open. "I say, hello there, do come in." The ghost of a suited young man leapt up from an armchair facing the lift, a cocktail glass held delicately in one hand. He looked like he'd just got back from a night out in the 1920s. A white silk scarf was draped around his shoulders, and an unfastened bow tie hung from his slender neck. He paused and looked Jake up and down, shaking his head dramatically. "I see you've not dressed for the occasion." He beckoned Jake into the room. "No matter, it's your first time here, isn't it? I can tell. I'm Eustace, the cloakroom attendant." He held out his hand to Jake. Jake looked at it suspiciously. If his encounter with Mr. Sixsmith had taught him anything, it was to be wary of ghostly strangers. "I'm Jake. Nice to meet you," he said. "I'm looking for Good Morning. He probably just came in. I need to see him immediately, please." The man smiled. "I'm sorry, but I'm not at liberty to talk about other guests here. Confidentiality and all that, I'm sure you'll understand." Jake frowned. But this is very urgent. Do you think you might be able to bend the rules? I just need to know." Jake tailed off as Eustace raised an eyebrow. Whatever Good Morning had said, bending the rules was obviously not the done thing around here. Eustace took a sip of his cocktail. "Listen, As it's your first time, I'm going to forget you said that. I just know you're going to find whatever you need once you're inside." "I'm not inside yet." Eustace pirouetted round and with a flourish announced dramatically, "The entrance to the embassy of the dead lies beyond." He pointed to a thick velvet curtain. "Thank you," said Jake, rushing hurriedly towards the curtain. The smile dropped from Eustace's face. "Oh, goodness me, not like that, young man. I'll need to relieve you of your baggage." Jake scratched his head. "What baggage?" Eustace smiled sympathetically. "I need to take your life." Jake stopped short. "What?" he said in a high-pitched voice. "This is the embassy of the dead. You leave your life at the door. Thank you very much." Eustace reached inside the curtain and flicked a switch. A light came on, and Jake could see a row of trolleys covered with sheets that seemed to be hiding body-shaped objects underneath. "Their spirits are inside the embassy," Eustace explained. "It's the only way the living can enter." Jake nodded as if he understood. "Right. How do I do that?" Eustace rolled his eyes. "You don't have to do it. If everybody could do it, I'd be out of a job. Allow me." Eustace walked behind Jake and placed his hands on his shoulders. Jake could hardly feel his touch. It was so light, but a chill ran down his back and he shivered involuntarily. Eustace leant forward so his mouth was close to Jake's ear. "If you would take a step forward, please, young man," he whispered. "Et voila," he said, as Jake gratefully stepped forward. "Aren't I clever?" Jake turned round, expecting to see Eustace standing there. He was, but someone else was standing in front of him, a scruffy boy, the same boy he'd seen reflected in the mirror. It was Jake, but he looked different somehow. The Jake not Jake was vacant and stood awkwardly, like he was about to topple over. Real Jake looked down at his hands. They were faded and transparent. He had literally stepped outside his own body, and now it stood before him like a senseless lump of bone and flesh. Eustace was clearly proud of himself and said, "And now for my next trick." He stepped forward and disappeared into Jake's statue body. It was quite possibly the most alarming thing Jake had ever witnessed, and that was saying something given the unlikely direction his life had taken recently. He fought the impulse to scream as the Jake not Jake danced over to the cloakroom, waving goodbye as he pulled the curtain shut behind him. A few seconds later the curtain opened again and Eustace stepped out, bowing low. "Impressive stuff, I know. Not many ghosts can possess a living form at will. In fact, there's only two of us. The less said about the other fellow, the better." Jake peered round the curtain. There, on the closest trolley, lay his own body. He suddenly panicked, wondering if the finger would stay with his body over there, but breathed a sigh of relief to feel its form in his pocket. It was still wriggling slightly, but didn't seem so intent on escaping. Eustace sensed Jake's relief. "Certain objects will accompany your ghost. It depends upon your sensitivity." He handed Jake a ticket. "You'll need this to reclaim your suit." I'm not wearing a suit, just, Jake looked down at himself. Jeans and, Eustace interrupted. "Your meat suit, as we body shifters like to call it, is your body. You can pick it up on the way out, but don't be too long, or you'll end up in the graveyard out back." Jake felt the now familiar feeling of alarm rise once again, but forced himself to ask calmly, "What graveyard?" "Wistman's Lodge used to have a chapel with a small family graveyard," said Eustace, adding with a smile, "which is a handy place for us to put the bodies of the living who stayed too long in the embassy." Jake couldn't tell if he was joking or not. "How long is too long?" "It's different for every living person, but you'll feel it, a sort of tug, and then you'll need to come back here," said Eustace, suddenly looking serious. "You'll be able to stay longer on your next visit, as your spirit acclimatizes to being without its body." Eustace drew back the curtain fully and led Jake through. Alongside the line of trolleys ran a long corridor with a plush-looking red carpet running down the centre, at the end of which was a flight of stairs leading upwards to an ornately carved wooden door. Eustace accompanied Jake to the door, then bowed low and motioned for Jake to enter. Welcome to being dead. What do you think? Do you like Eustace?
Yeah, he's very funny.
He's good, isn't he? Would you like to be able to just kind of inhabit someone else's body at will, like Eustace can? Just say, that's it, you step out of your body and I'll step into your meat suit.
I don't know.
Oh, sounds like fun to me.
Stop
Anyway,
other people's
actually,
bodies.
well, yeah. I mean, the interesting thing is that now that Jake has a ticket, and we don't know what it's got on it, but it will give him a certain amount of time, a countdown, before he has to leave the Embassy of the Dead. So now he's on a timer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.